Actually, for the last few weeks, if you'll recall, I've made some noise about the fact that just because you hear me yammer about some concern means nothing without our working to address it after the final note of the last hymn. It's easy to make the mistake of thinking that our agreeing that there is a problem means that we have solved the problem. And we have considered that the only time consent equals conviction is in apathy. Now, a part of that was a little remonstration, a little pinch, that just naming ourselves Unitarian Universalists is not all by itself a cause for celebration. We UUs have a time-honored habit of feeling like our identity as UU makes us somehow exceptional. Like all the sins of the world were left behind upon joining this religion. I think you're thinking of another religion, because Unitarian Universalists don't do that. Some other religions do that, and we don't. Officially, we don't. In practice, oh boy. Smart people have given it a name. They call it UU exceptionalism. It has a name. And this is where one feels as though just by virtue of being amongst people you have mistakenly identified as like-minded, cough, cough. Oh wait, hang on, that was a sound effect. UU exceptionalism is where one feels as though just by virtue of being amongst people you have mistakenly identified as being like-minded. One is no longer racist or sexist or homophobic or egregiously greedy or petty or needy or classist or intolerant of anything except maybe Republicans and the stupid parts of other religions and really what's not stupid. And that one should suddenly be totally understood in all one's communications as the magnificent person that one is, because dang it, I have inherent worth and dignity, and don't you dare infringe upon my inherent worth and dignity. You know, UU exceptionalism. But this is just baptism by identity. And we don't do that. We do dedications. We do commitments. We don't do washing aways. We say we don't, but we actually do. We do it a lot, in fact, and we do it more than we should. But somebody once said that faith without works is dead. So we should be wary of our unconscious self-baptism. But this is also true, okay? We don't always do baptism by identity. We do not always think that we have arrived as a soul just because we have arrived through these doors. And our claim is important. Our claim that we do not do that. Our claim that we are a tradition based on constant revision, interconnected and oriented to justice, continuously calls us out of this habit. And sometimes we listen to it and respond. So just showing up, what you have all done today, is not the culmination of that response. But it is the beginning. And beginnings are important. No one has ever finished doing something that they did not begin to do. That's not even possible. You have to start somewhere. Just showing up is a beginning we're celebrating, and it's a beginning we're singing about. And you have to start somewhere. This is a fantastic place to start. So just showing up doesn't mean that you have arrived, but just showing up means something. It does. And I've been on you all for 2 or 3 weeks now that work is important, that you have to work, that just showing up isn't enough. And today I want to assure you also what I said was true, but it's also true that just showing up is important. Your presence counts. Your person adds to our weave, adds to our capacity for care, for resilience and wisdom. Just showing up declares that you are a person who rightly recognizes that the task, duty, and honor and responsibility of being you is one that you can improve on. It means that you don't know everything. I have a note that I should change the pronoun. It means that we don't know everything. That we aren't free from our fear-inspired faults or the faults or contexts bequeathed to us. Your being here means that you know, that we know, that we have room to grow. Just showing up declares that we know that we have work to do when it comes to racism, sexism, homophobia, greed, pettiness, kindness, classism, and the sense of where from our own truth, worth, and dignity spring. And that is what makes us exceptional. Our yearning for the beloved community and our humility in the face of that yearning are what makes us exceptional. So do we have the beloved community now? Here. Our pond is not perfect. And that's not just everyone else's fault, right? So we are here to work on the world by working on ourselves, and we are not exceptions, either to the outside world or to one another. We are not exceptions because we know better. We are exceptional because we know we can work on knowing and acting better than we do. And this is not some rat on a treadmill, perpetually working and never progressing kind of deal, right? We as a tradition, as a covenanted association of churches, as covenanted communities within that association, as leaders, learners, ministers, and parishioners, we have made progress. We have made progress. We are part of a progress, and we will make progress from here. Because our progress has revealed that there is ever more work to be done. There's more work to be done in the world and in ourselves. And of course, I think it starts here. But it is true, and I want to celebrate that we have made huge strides. And there is no better time to draw attention to that progress than today, as we find ourselves at the tail end of Pride Week, a week in which our state has granted the right, what should be the inherent right of all people who love each other to be married. Let that resonate with you as you rise and sing number 105. My internship church, my supervisor, Reverend Teresa Novak, she is a lesbian, and we were at that time working very hard in Ogden to pass a GLBTQ equal housing and employment ordinance in the city of Ogden, and she had declared at the beginning of that struggle that this was her favorite song, that song was, and that she would not sing it until we got that passed. And in fact, we didn't. We failed to get that passed on the first go-round. But the city council had seen, they got caught in some legal issues, which is why they couldn't pass it. So it took a little maneuvering, but their hearts were all broken, and they decided to come back and figure it out. They pushed some words around, and they passed it. And then Teresa got up the next Sunday, and with a gargantuanly horrible singing voice, broke our hearts with it. Yeah, it was beautiful. And so if you walk in here and feel a little self-congratulatory for just being here, and for the simple act of identifying as Unitarian Universalists, I'm going to let you off the hook. I'm going to say it's okay, and that it's even good to have pride in your tradition, to remember Teresa, and that you walk with her. That's a key word, is tradition here. I mean, I think it's good to feel proud of our UU heritage and tradition, but you have to do that, you have to really appreciate it and understand that where we are today is the result of the blood and sweat and tears of prior years. Real people, and some of them might even be in this room, real people have worked hard to shape this religion into the religion that is at the forefront of recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of lesbian, gay, transgender, and queer people, and together with and as lesbian, gay, transgender, and queer people, insisting on the political and social rights and freedoms due to all beings of inherent worth and dignity. Due to all beings. So be proud of that work. Be proud of where it has put us, not at the end of the road, but well down that road toward the beloved community. So be proud, and as you feel that pride, let it call you. Let it call you. And know this, it was not always like this. 1967, the UU Committee on Goals published the results of a survey in which it revealed that 99.9% of the Unitarian Universalist respondents to that survey reported that homosexuality should be discouraged. 1967, 99.9%. All right, some of us were UUs in 1967, right? As you can imagine, at that time, ministers who were discovered to be gay were fired from Unitarian Universalist pulpits. It's hard to imagine that today. In 1969, the Reverend James Stoll came out publicly at a national event. He never held a pulpit again. Unitarian Universalism has a rich history with grand thinkers and pioneers breaking us free from the context of their times. It also has this history, a history that is caught by the context of its time. It's a dark verse in our song. But as you know, our tune did change, and from the point from which it changed forward, there has been a steady and building flow of liberation within our own ranks. It started as a trickle and is now the very air we breathe. Just 1 year after Reverend Stoll's public coming out, 3 years after 99.9% of UUs polled stated that homosexuality should be discouraged, we started to take our own words seriously. Maybe it's because we saw the pain that our hypocrisy was causing. We started acting on what we said we believed, that all people are worthy of our love and worthy to love one another. In 1970, the UUA General Assembly passed a resolution calling for an end to discrimination against homosexuals and bisexuals. 3 years after that, the General Assembly voted to create an Office of Gay Affairs at the UUA. That's gone through a number of different name changes and is now the Office of LGBTQ Concerns, maybe, and Multiculturalism. In 1979, the Reverend Morgan Strong became the first openly gay minister to be called to serve, as he was hired by All Souls Congregation in Maine. Mark Bellatini, whose name is all over our hymnal, was also hired that year by First UU Society of San Francisco. So in 12 or 13 years, we went from 99.9% of our members discouraging homosexuality to calling openly gay ministers into the pulpit. In the 1980s, the UUA General Assembly passed various resolutions and launched programs advocating for the settlement of lesbian, gay, and bisexual ministers, affirming same-sex couples, affirming the practice of clergy to perform services of union for same-sex couples, and calling for an end to AIDS and HIV-based discrimination. So the fight went on, and very importantly, in the 80s, the Welcoming Congregation program began to form. The 1990s saw Unitarian Universalists and UUA take on the Boy Scouts. We also fought against hate legislation in Oregon, North Carolina, and Colorado. We called upon the U.S. military to accept all sexual orientations in their ranks and passed resolutions in support of same-gender marriage. We also published the Welcoming Congregation's Handbook in the 90s, and by June of 2000, 27% of UU congregations were welcoming congregations. In 2002, the Reverend Sean Parker was called to serve South Valley Unitarian Universalist in Salt Lake City. He was the first out transgender person in the UU ministry to be called to serve as parish minister. That's a big deal. In 2004, UUA President Bill Sinkford legally married Hillary and Julie Goodrich, who were lead plaintiffs in Goodrich versus Massachusetts. And 2 years later, 50% of UU congregations were certified as welcoming congregations. In 2007 alone, resolutions and actions of immediate witness were passed at one General Assembly calling for employment non-discrimination, the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, the passing of comprehensive sexual education legislation, and the confronting of sexual identity discrimination. By April of 2010, of a tradition that 30 or so years prior had roundly rejected LGBTQ people, 650 congregations were officially welcoming congregations. That is amazing progress, and it is ongoing. And in October of 2014, the Reverend Ron Ferris legally married Colleen and Linda. Right here. In this beautiful state. And that was the first same-sex marriage ever performed in Oro Valley. Let the record show. And all that work, all that amazing work, not only opened our tradition to LGBTQ community, not only were we championing gay and lesbian and bisexual and transgender and queer concerns, but we opened ourselves. We called ourselves to truly live into our vision of who we are. And it has changed us. I was speaking about that very thing with Annette Marquis, who is the director of UUA's Office of LGBTQ and Multicultural Programs. And she let me know that 3 years ago, they did a survey, a multi-congregational a multicultural congregation consultation to help determine what got congregations started on their multicultural journeys and how they lived into that work, right? Multiculturalism. And the one thing, she says, the one thing that came back in this consultation was that every congregation stated that their work on the Welcoming Congregation program broadened the congregation's welcome in such a way that they could more easily broaden it even further. By challenging themselves to be open to LGBTQ people, they had built skills and experience in welcoming others who are not of the dominant culture. It's not just that Unitarian Universalism has taken up the cause of LGBTQ people, it's that LGBTQ people have taken up the cause and affected the course of Unitarian Universalism. In working with and as LGBTQ people, UUs have changed the very fabric of our tradition and challenged ourselves, and so enabled ourselves to take more bold steps towards building the beloved community. We owe a debt to that history, and that debt will be paid in the work we will do tomorrow. That debt will be paid in the work that we do tomorrow in building a self and a community and a world that strives for the beloved community. But not today. Today is a Sabbath. Today is not for work. Today, this Sunday, is for celebrating our new beginning, for celebrating the new family, the new families all over this state, our new identities as individuals and as Unitarian Universalists, and our new legality. Today is for celebrating our victory. Love wins.